Hey guys, so I'm just going to riff on this one. I don't really have too many organized thoughts, but recently it came out and that Vince McMahon is very high on Angel Garza and thinks that Angel Garza is the next Eddie Guerrero. And I think that this really does Angel Garza no favors. It doesn't do Angel Garza any favors because, for starters, number one, anybody that Vince McMahon actually likes, the wrestling internet fan starts to hate almost immediately. So it's going to start being a lot of people complaining about the little things that he does. The things that, maybe gave his character charm before, people are going to start seeing as a problem. For instance, well, he's not able to kiss women in the crowd anymore. So because they have these barricades up. But I remember people getting really upset about that when he was doing it or whatever. But you also going to have a lot of the sexual innuendo with Charlie and all of the other things that he does. Just guaranteed that people are going to be upset about it off the rip. I just know that they will be because it's what they do. Like Roman Reigns, when people made a big deal about Roman Reigns being a star, the little things that Roman did, as far as he didn't really do that much in the Shield. He didn't talk that much. He just came in, did his, Superman punch, spear, and that was it. He was the energy guy. He came in, he did the hot tag, and that was his stuff. Now, when he started wrestling matches kind of that way as a single star, people started complaining. People loved John Cena, the whole John Cena gimmick. And then when John Cena became the man, all of a sudden, everything John Cena did was a problem. So I really don't want that from Angel. So he's really been set up for failure by people who agree right now. But if he actually gets any real push, people are going to start complaining. Number two, in my thoughts process, is that you shouldn't be trying to recreate Eddie Guerrero in the first place. Eddie Guerrero, what made Eddie Guerrero so endearing was that we actually got to watch him struggle from being like a cruiserweight talent in WCW, a guy who had really good matches but really wasn't going anywhere as a personality. And then he kind of grew as a personality right in front of our eyes. But also what made Eddie work is that Eddie's story, as far as, the drug addictions and, the accidents and the injuries and all the things that he went through, his friendships with Malenko and Benoit and Jericho and all these guys, that is part of what made Eddie Guerrero a big star and what made all these things that we remember about Eddie so important. The whole stuff with China and the storyline with Brock and, the Los Guerreros and all that type of stuff. All that stuff made it. The little tricks of the trade that Eddie used to pull, we used to, get behind that stuff because it was unique for the time. As you try to recreate it, people are going to start saying, okay, well, he's a discount version of Eddie Guerrero. I remember in this conversation when Carlito was on the roster. Now, a lot of people don't remember this, but there was a lot of talk that Carlito was kind of the next Eddie Guerrero. Because Carlito had this cherubic face, he was kind of a trickster, he was a miscreant, he was a really slick talking, Caribbean cool guy. And all of a sudden, people were kind of started looking at him like, oh, he could be the next big Hispanic star. I talked about this in my tokenizing video about, this whole concept of making a Hispanic star and just not letting one rise, but trying to make one and then trying to replace a Hispanic star with another one. But it didn't work with Carlito because he didn't have the drive. He didn't have, he had the personality and he had the skills. He just didn't have the determination. He just didn't want to waste time in feuds that he thought was below him. He wanted the push, as, Pritchard and other people have said that Carlito just didn't have the motivation, that, it was hard to get him to actually do what you wanted him to do. And that was why he kind of fizzled out and ended up in tag teams and stuff like that. So we don't really know that much about Angel Garza as far as his, we know he has the pedigree. That was part of the Eddie Guerrero story, is that he came from a family. That Angel Garza has the pedigree, he has the family connections. But we don't really know much about his motivations. He hasn't struggled that much in the WWE. He came onto the scene pretty much as a job guy in NXT for a little while. And then the moment he started showing any personality, he got the rocket put to him. And he ended up being the cruiserweight champion. And he was a cruiserweight champion for all of like 2 weeks before he moved to Raw, where he was put in a prominent spot. So he really hasn't had time to struggle yet. So we don't know what a struggling Angel Garza looks like yet. And that's part of the story, because most of Eddie Guerrero's career has been him struggling to break through. and, you know, being on the cusp of, you know, Eddie Guerrero was the guy who was wrestling Ric Flair. You know, he actually wrestled Ric Flair for the U.S. title and stuff like that. He wrestled. A lot of the top guys wrestled DDP, wrestled Booker T, wrestled Benoit, wrestled Jericho. He was wrestling top guys, or, you know, guys that they saw as top guys at the time. He didn't really get in the ring with like Goldberg or Scott Steiner, not to my knowledge. You know, he didn't wrestle Sid or anything. But I don't think he wrestled Hulk Hogan or Randy Savage, but, you know, he wrestled a lot of the guys who he was trying to get onto their level, and he really just kept hitting his head on that ceiling. And in the WWE, it was the same thing, where he would wrestle Steve Austin and get beat in 5 minutes. He would wrestle The Rock or something like that and get beat like in short order. You know, he was a permanent Intercontinental Champion, never going anywhere guy until, you know, the opportunity between the brand split opened up the opportunity for him to be able to go through and do something else. And we really don't have that position for Angel yet. And I think that he's so young, and that we just kind of jump into conclusions as far as, well, Angel has swagger, you know, he has personality. He kind of does. He's kind of a Latino Heat on a cooler side, not as much on the comedic side. But we also have to deal with, you know, the constraints of today versus the constraints of 2000. You know, when Eddie was coming up, there wasn't so many people complaining about sexual innuendos in wrestling. It was actually welcomed because most of the audience was, you know, teenage boys, so they really didn't care. Even though a lot of his sexual innuendos was towards the very muscular China, we really didn't pay that much attention. And this goes back to my part number one. The sexual nature of the Angel Garza character is really going to get WWE into some trouble. So in order to get over it, they're going to have to probably kill that part, you know, or downplay it, which means they're going to have to upplay something else. And who knows what the hell that's going to be. Number three is this: it's simply a lot of pressure. When you say that someone's going to be the next someone else, or they remind you of someone else, there's going to be a lot of pressure in the comparison, because people have such a fondness for Eddie Guerrero and all of his antics. The moment that anyone tries to recreate that, it's going to be heat, because people are going to be like, okay, well, no, we don't want that. Again, Eddie Guerrero was lightning in a bottle. People are not just their race or their gender. They are a story. The Eddie Guerrero story is part of why Eddie Guerrero exists and why Eddie Guerrero worked. Angel Garza does not have the Eddie Guerrero story. So he can be a star who just happens to be Hispanic, but he can't be Eddie Guerrero. It's just not going to happen. And any attempts to make him so is just going to make people dislike him, because they're going to be looking for reasons to dislike him. But more important than that is that we need to let Angel be Angel. You know, however his personality blooms, we just need to let that be, because the pressure of him trying to, you know, fill that void, the Eddie Guerrero void, is going to end up, you know, driving everybody crazy. It's not good for us as the fans. It's not good for the company, but it's also not good for him. You know, you just can't recreate that, and we shouldn't be trying to, or thinking that we should attempt to. You know, there's other ways to present a Latin character than, you know, the way that Eddie Guerrero did it. And part of it is skills and, you know, marketing and all that type of stuff. But the other part is the desire. And again, we don't know if Angel has the desire. But I like Angel Garza. I was a big fan of him when he was in NXT. I like the idea of, you know, the Lethal Lothario. I liked it. You know, I liked the whole, you know, it's kind of is it like Latino Heat? Kind of. But it's not Latino Heat-ish as far as, you know, the comedic aspects of it, you know, which was really overplayed as far as Eddie Guerrero came, is, you know, with the flowers and everything. Maybe he'll start bringing Charlie flowers, and I think that would be dope. It would be a nice little thing. But as long as they take their time with it, I think a lot of people will kind of start seeing it for themselves. But I didn't really think of Angel Garza as kind of like an Eddie Guerrero. I didn't really think about that, you know, and I think that that's kind of the wrong approach. But I do like the guy, and I do think I am a big fan of his, and I want to see him succeed. It's just that I don't really want people attempting to set him up for failure by putting the pressure of him being the most important Latin star of the last 20 years and dumping it on this guy who has been on the roster for all of like 2 or 3 years. You know, like it's very soon to be putting a guy in that position and saying, you're going to be our new top Latin star for the decade. And it's like, oh, okay. You know, I'm pretty sure like he's been doing this for a while, but it's a completely different monster being the top Latin star in the WWE. You have to be on your P's and Q's at all times. And we don't have any idea what could happen with Angel Garza. But would you guys let me know what you guys think in the comment section? I'll probably repeated myself too much, but let me know what you think. Do you think Angel Garza is being set up for failure? What do you think of Angel Garza? I'm a big fan. I want to see him do well. I want to see him be the champion one day. But that's far down the road. But if he continues to do well, I would not mind for him to be the top guy. I just don't want him to get caught in the loop of wrestling Rey Mysterio 100 times, which is what happened to Andrade, is what happened to Alberto Del Rio. They just get in this mode of, you gotta wrestle Rey, and then they wrestle Rey 100 times, and it's like, okay, enough, you know, like enough of, you know, the Kalisto did the same thing. He ended up in this permanent loop of matches with Alberto Del Rio. It's like the Mexican guys just keep fighting each other. And so far, they've been doing that with Angel Garza and Alberto Carrillo, where they just fight every week. You know, it's like, we can, I know that, you know, the Mexican guys, they work together, similar styles and all that type of stuff, but we don't really need that. You know, we don't really need these guys fighting every single week in order to because the audience is going to get tired of it. And yes, we know Eddie and Rey had a lot of matches even before their classic Halloween Havoc match, but we don't need that. We don't need these guys to be wrestling 100 times. And I'm afraid he's going to fall into that trap, because it's already started. You know, it's already started with him wrestling Humberto 100 times. But if they can book him correctly, which is, you know, let him be himself, then I think that he can be a star. And maybe even be, you know, the top Latin star, or even a top star, just period, without even the part of the Latin part being put in there, just being a top guy. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section, and I'll talk to you later.